Dudes, what's up guys? The time has come and so have I. That's right, after all these months of begging, pleading, poking, prodding, I have finally gotten Max to sit down and play through a Zelda game. So that's right, starting next week on YoVideogames, we are going to go through the Zelda series. Now what Zelda games you might ask? Because there's an awful lot of Zelda games. We're going to be going through the good ones, i.e. the games I like, because I'm not going to play a game I don't like, and Max isn't going to play a Zelda game that I don't like. So we're going to go through the big ones, the critically acclaimed ones, the most beloved ones. So sit tight, we're finally venturing to Hyrule, and I'm finally going to take that long-haired bastard on a journey he will never forget. So for those who are just too curious, here are my favorite Zelda games, and a little bit of an explanation as to why. The order they are in is this. Fuck you, that's my order. They're all great. So have a watch, and these are my favorite Zelda games and the ones we're going to go through. So for those unaware, Max has actually completed a Zelda game before. He beat Twilight Princess on the Wii when it first came out. This is good because it means I don't have to go through this game again with him, even though I wouldn't mind personally to tackle the GameCube version again. But Twilight Princess is definitely one of my favorites, and the reason it's one of my favorites is because it's a pure Zelda game, or as the developers might call it, 110% Zelda. There's been a large consensus of fans recently that have been saying how much they like, certain games in the series because they're different. And I don't really understand this line of thinking, because if you love something because it's different from the standard, then why did you love the series to begin with? To me, Twilight Princess was just return to form, and it was going back to Hyrule, going back to saving the land from Ganondorf. Twilight Princess was just a return to the normal style of gameplay. 8 dungeons, multiple lands, different regions, different races. So that's what I really like about the game. But that being said, I definitely do love the classic games in the franchise, and those are the 3 games we're going to be tackling. Now, of course, everyone's favorite game is usually linked to the past, and I really have a hard time disagreeing with this. However, unlike other people, I don't really place a favorite above one or the other. Like, my favorite Zelda games all sort of pile on top of each other. Like my core 4, as you might say, are all equally great in my eyes. I don't like to sit there and nitpick which one's better or not because they are all equally amazing. A Link to the Past, of course, holds a special place in my heart, and everyone else's heart. It was the full realization of the first Legend of Zelda game on the NES. Only this time, it added so much more depth to the overworld, to the side quests, and items, and their uses. And it's really hard to argue all of that. Like, there's almost nothing wrong with this game at all. In fact, when I first beat the game, I was convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt this is the greatest video game ever made, and absolutely nothing on earth was ever going to top this game. Of course, I was wrong. Happily wrong, but wrong nonetheless. Because Ocarina of Time came out. Ocarina of Time kind of blew my expectations, and a lot of people who are too young to remember might not realize that when Ocarina of Time came out, there was both a drive to make all these classic gaming franchises into 3D versions, but at the same time, a lot of these 3D versions of games were turning out really bad. This is probably something that might not be as easily identifiable to a younger audience, but when Ocarina of Time was announced, which was before the launch of the N64, there was really no good 3D conversions of video games yet. Yet everyone wanted to see it. There was a lot less cynicism back then. Mario 64 was like the first real, true proving ground that a classic 2D franchise could work in 3D. But there were a lot of unknowns going into Zelda. There was an auto-jump feature which no one was really on board with. The Z-targeting was kinda, skeptical. Everything leading up to this game's release was kinda not in its favor. However, it turned most people's heads, and a lot of people, including myself, would say it is the greatest game of all time. And that's the game we're going to start with first, because we need to go back to the beginning, the roots of the franchise. I don't really care about the games that chronologically come before it, because none of them are anywhere near as good as Ocarina of Time, so we can safely ignore them. And really, you can ignore them entirely story-wise and not have, there's no real story connections that really tie everything together. And if you're going to jump on the comments and talk about the Skyward Sword ending, you can eat my dick right now. Now, the last game we're going to play is my personal favorite. Now, when I say personal favorite, that doesn't mean I think it's better than the others, it's just personally my favorite. And that, of course, would be Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening was a huge revelation for the series, and this was actually revealed in an Iwata Asks About the Game. And basically, they had said that the design and story elements and things that went into making Link's Awakening a reality changed and influenced the rest of the whole Zelda series. And we're going to go back and we're going to look at it, and I can point out where I believe the developers are talking about this. So Link's Awakening is going to be a really fun playthrough for me because I love the game. And I've beaten it probably as much as any of the other core 4 that I love. And I truly believe that it is a game that shows where a developer makes a game because they want to, it turns out better. Now you may not know this, but Link's Awakening was made during the off hours. Amongst the core EAD Nintendo group of Takashi Tezuka and Yoshiaki Koizumi, they made this game like almost off the clock at first, and it was a game they just wanted to make. And another game that was made that developers just wanted to make it was Third Strike. And we all know how that game turned out for the fighting game community. So with Link's Awakening, I've written articles about it before, and I hope to show now, through gameplay, why I believe that Link's Awakening truly has one of the best stories ever told in a video game. And one of the reasons it's so good is because A, it did it on a black and white 8-bit video game. And it did it without being over the top, relying on hugely cinematic cutscenes and over the top presentation. And state-of-the-art motion capture and voice acting and... No. It didn't have anything. And yet it told a beautiful, brilliant, and subtle story that I can't wait to dive back into. So hopefully you guys are as excited as I am to play these games, or at least watch these games with us. Play along with us even, if you want. Start up your own file. I encourage it. We'll be seeing you next week on YoVideogames, and let's get right into this. So there you have it. We're going to be going through the top 3 Zelda games, according to me, which makes it right. Also, stick around for the month of October, as we're going to go through some of the scariest games ever made. That's right, Castlevania on YoVideogames. We're going to take a look at some of the best and not best games in this beloved franchise. What games we'll cover? Well, you're just going to have to stick around and find out, but you're definitely going to get your dose of Dracula, Dracula's son, and some German dude who no one remembers the name of. Stick around. YoVideogames is coming to you this October with Zelda and Castlevania. It's going to be great, guys.